Frank asked me to talk about an experience I had 6 years ago. I ran for Salt Lake City Council, and I did it on a lot less money than everybody else did. I still spent some money, but I want to inspire you. If you're thinking about running, if you think that is something that might get you a chance to get in front of people and change their minds about freedom, that's really why I ran. So I call this small campaign Big Ideas. I was a mechanical engineer, still am. I am a sales rep though now, and I had just started the sales rep job, and it was taking lots of time. And for a while there, I worked 80-hour weeks for 2 years straight with no vacation because I finally got incentive pay. I thought, wow, that's great. I could get paid for what I do. And I was busy renovating some duplexes that I wanted to try to get some cash flow. So why would I run? Well, doesn't hurt to have some inspiration. That was my campaign sign on the right. Looks a little familiar, doesn't it? It says Restoring American Principles. You remember Ron Paul's campaign was Restore America Now. And I had just come out of watching the Ron Paul campaign, 2012. Very exciting to see him get so much attention. My hometown of Chico, California. I live in Utah now, but Ron Paul had given 3 days notice to somebody, and then through the grapevine they found out he was coming to Chico State, this little school, to speak. The quad was completely packed. 6,000 people. They had people climbing on the buildings just to see him. So I'm going to play, if you haven't seen this yet.
Is there audio?
I don't know if it's... There you go. It's working.
It's a job. And we set out to do a job, and we had to do the job. Live free or die. Or die trying. Are you running for president?
Yes, I am. I will file the papers today to become an official candidate.
If he can get in the debate, and if he can make a statement, I think it's a story that deserves to be told.
And I was the one that was hesitant to get involved.
We're going to have to engage in the Middle East. We have a new strategy, very confrontational and very aggressive. There will be chaos that will spread to the region and to the rest of the world. They ultimately want to bring down the United States of America.
Just come home. We just marched in.
And I said to myself, what is he doing up on stage with all these other Republican candidates?
I would ask the congressman to withdraw that comment and tell us that he didn't really mean that.
This is just going to shake the establishment. They do not want this guy running for president.
The media are almost incapable of reporting and even understanding the Constitution. We had to become our own media.
The new free press was utilized, the internet.
The community of websites that was created is really quite phenomenal. It's like its own world.
We're not going to do things the normal way.
I think the balloon that's standing out of everybody's mind. I mean, that was just such an outrageous thing to do.
We were very impressed at how quickly a seemingly random group of people could pull together this rather unusual, unique project.
I would like to tell the grassroots that whether your ideas were very logical or very insane,
You've heard of highway blogging? Speed blogging.
they were always inspiring and sometimes amusing.
One small step for man, one giant leap for Ron Paul.
There were more Ron Paul signs than anything else everywhere.
It's not just what kind of places, it's like, can you attach it?
You got a permit to put that sign up? Never even crossed their mind. Didn't even blaze over their cortex, brush it at all, that they were going to seek some kind of permission from the man to challenge the man.
They were so passionate that they just gave everything.
He was raising about $200,000 every half hour or so.
And then we held a consecutive money bomb on December 16th, which was the anniversary of the Boston Tea Party.
At the height of the march, there had to be 15,000 people there.
Certainly was an act of defiance to choose an arena to
just on the opposite side of town. The national convention is going on.
The difference between free thinkers and diddlers. And that's the difference between the rallies of the Republic and the RNC.
It was the culmination of everything that his whole campaign stood for.
Let it not be said that we did nothing.
Okay, so that's the trailer for a 1-hour video. I bought 100 copies and was passing them out because I was so excited about Ron Paul's campaign. And let's see, I think I can. Oh, it's starting again. I don't want that. Somehow I need to get it to go to the next. There we go. But I was so excited about that, I thought, man, maybe that's one way to inspire people. Maybe that's one way to spread the message of freedom. I was also very concerned at that time of what I was seeing. Actually, a few years prior to that, I started investigating 9/11. And up until that point, I thought, well, these people that think that 9/11 was something other than we were told are crazy. But I'm a mechanical engineer, and I started looking at some of this evidence. And buildings don't fall that way. And they have never done that. And then Dr. Jones from BYU, that's where I went to school, he had all this evidence of thermite in the dust. So anyway, not to go into 9/11 in great detail, but it was something scary to me, and I thought, I need to spend some time looking into that, and I need to wake people up. And I need to teach them about liberty in however, whatever capacity I can. And I literally was praying. I think one time I prayed for about an hour, and I was fasting to try to find a way. How can I impact people? And then this fellow, who I didn't know, randomly calls me up and says, "Do you want to run for city council?" And strangely, I said, "Yes." And he was, I didn't know him from Adam, but he was a Republican guy that was calling, he wanted more Republicans to run for city council, even though it was a nonpartisan race. And he saw my name on the list because I was a precinct chair, and I had done it several times, and I was a delegate for the Republicans for several years running. And so I said, I'll do it. And then I had second thoughts, oh my, what am I doing? And my roommate at the time, Jim, he said, I'll support you, I'll be your campaign manager. And then my friend Suzanne said, oh, I want to help. So that was our team. And if you do run, some expectations that I want to kind of go through with you. What should you expect? And probably most of you in this room, I don't know, maybe you've run before. Maybe you're looking for ways to help people run. But I spent $4,500 of my own funds. I figured I was going to spend a lot of time. And for me, the time I spent was worth way more than the money I spent. Because you can spend as much of your own money as you want. And then I got, overall our budget, what we spent for the whole campaign was about $11,000. And we were outspent by 3x by the opponent and 2x by everybody else. There were 5 people that ran. And you're gonna risk your reputation because people are gonna say bad things about you. You're gonna put your phone number out there, hopefully, if it's a small race especially. And the newspapers are gonna make fun of you and try to smear you if you say anything having to do with liberty and changing the system. I spent 40 hours a week for 5 to 6 months. And that was a big deal for me because, you know, I'm single now. I was single then, and I had to swear off dating. No more dating. I had to kind of restrict my work hours to about 40 hours. My boss said, hey, I don't want you to run. He thought I was going to win. Oh, don't you realize what I'm going to say? And anyway, but it was, I just went full tilt. I really ran like I was going to try to win. So, and you've got to put your passion into it. So that little picture down there is my campaign headquarters. That's my house. And your supporters, passion is more important than money, and quality is more important than quantity. So I think these are mistakes people make when they go and they run and they strategize, oh, this is what I'm going to do, and they come up with this big strategy. But really, what they need to do is touch hearts and minds. So it's not about, this is what I want to get through. It's not about winning, even though that would be great. It's not about votes. It's about hearts and minds. Found this cute little picture online. But that's what you want to do. And something, funny story, I went through grad school in mechanical engineering. And when I was studying, I found in grad school what was different than undergrad was that I focused on what I was learning instead of the grades. I didn't care about the grades anymore. And what happened? I got straight A's. Because I wasn't worried about the grades anymore. I was worried about what I was interested in, which was spreading, which was, for me, it was learning. But with this, with campaigning, focus on liberty. That's what Ron Paul did. Why did he have so many people? Because he didn't care about the results. He cared about the message. And that's great, because we love liberty, so it's fun. Makes it fun. So Salt Lake City, I ran for Salt Lake City Council in District 7, which was Sugar House area. It's the east side of town, and it's the south corner of that. I don't know if you can see the mouse, but it's kind of the affluent area of Salt Lake, and it's also the ultra-liberal area of Salt Lake. I didn't care, because I know the message of liberty is popular with everybody. It really is. So anyway, we had this list of people. Lisa Adams had run prior. Oh, there you go. He's tracking my mouse. Let's see how good you are. Hey, thanks. That would be handy. So Lisa had run the prior election. She almost beat the incumbent, who was very popular. Well, he was retiring, and so I thought, well, maybe this is a good opportunity to run. But everybody always told me, Lisa's going to trounce you. You don't stand a chance of running against her, but you might be able to make a noise against the other folks. So these other people. Well, Lisa got 32% of the vote, almost twice what I got, but I barely squeaked in by 24 votes, which was a big deal. Nobody expected that because they didn't know who I was. These other people were highly active. Everybody knew them. Topher Horman was Mayor Ralph Becker's pick. He was funding him. Amy Berry was like the community council chair, and Deb Henry was really well known. So it was really kind of fun. This is a picture of my campaign manager and I when we just barely squeaked in through the primary, which was a runoff election, and then they had the general. Okay, so I want to inspire you on why you run. I think that's the most important message. If that's the only message that we talk about tonight, I think that's what matters. But I'm sure you're wondering, well, gosh, in a small campaign, what do you expect to have to do? And so I made a list of those things, and we'll just go through them really quick. Lists, signs, flyers, the website. Obviously, you need a website. Social media, doors, door knocking, very important, especially in a small campaign. Phone calls, time management. How do you deal with that? What is your strategy? What do you do with supporters when you get them? Because this time we didn't have any supporters, but what do you do when you get them? And what do they do for you? Ads, robocalls, mailers, what's effective? Debates, do you hold a debate? Interest groups, how do you handle that? Lobbyists, media, and endorsements. There's probably a lot of other factors, but these are the main ones. First thing you do is you go to the county recorder's office and you say, I want to buy a list of all the voting records. And it costs, I think, $35 or something like that. Really cheap. Very important, you got to do that. And then the first thing they give you is this massive spreadsheet that you can't make heads or tails of, and it shows, name, address, phone, date of birth, party affiliation, when you voted, absentee or in person. That's what, at least in Salt Lake County, that's what they have. And I think pretty much everywhere they do the same. So they tell you, they have a checkbox by every month for the last 10 years or so, who voted. A lot of times these people have moved, you don't know. So I went through and I filtered this with a point system. And I assigned points to, because my election was going to be an off year. It was when they didn't have a presidential election that year, and it was just municipal, and that was it. So not very many people show up. So you look at those that voted in municipal elections, and those are the ones, the most recent municipal election, those are the ones you want to give them extra points for what they did. And then you give them extra points if they're obviously the Constitution Party, you've got to talk to them. If they're Libertarian Party, you want to talk to them, people that are outside the establishment. Maybe Republicans are higher, you give them one extra point over the Democrats, but that's what I did. And then I checked also, I made an algorithm in the spreadsheet to, if they're all in one household, a bunch of people, then I put them all in one household and gave extra points to that household. Because you want to call that house for sure. If they've got a lot of people that vote in municipal elections, don't miss that group. Because you can't talk to everybody. You can try, and I tried. And then I went and I made knock lists. And this is really critical, because once you have supporters, you've got to have a list that has odds and evens separated. So you go down one side of the street and the other side of the street. And you got to have the point system, and you got to have a little space to put their email. Because when you talk to them at the door, if they give you the email, that's your list of reminders. And you want phone numbers so you can do robocalls, which are not the most effective, but it's a good reminder tool. Okay, how are we doing on time? So we got about halfway. Okay. Signs. Signs need to be easy to read. My sign was not all that great, frankly, because you just see my name, which is, you can see that, but the other writing from a distance when you're driving by, you don't even see it. So you want to make signs easy to read? Cheap, costs about $2 each. If you do them online, you can do two-sided, two colors. And that's what I'd recommend doing. And then you get the metal frames, they're about $1 each. I borrowed mine from somebody that I knew through the Republicans. And she was like, hey, yeah, I got a whole stack of these, come get them. Thieves are going to take your stuff. Your opponents are going to take your stuff, especially if you're pro-liberty. There's going to be people out there that, oh, we got to get rid of that. So they go through, and my campaign manager spent most of his time checking on all the signs. He had records of where they were, and he'd drive around and he'd replace them. And I think 50% of my signs were replacement signs. So it was like a game. It's crazy. And then your ardent supporters you're going to get from door knocking. It's really important that you knock doors, especially in a local campaign. You got to have a website, especially nowadays. You have to do it. My campaign manager he wasn't a web developer at all, and so he just went online and used Weebly. There's a bunch of these that make websites for you, and you just go through a pick list, and oh, I want it to have frames, or I wanted this or that or the other, and you can just, in a few hours, you can figure it out. So that was handy, and it'll host for you too. Social media, you got to do that. My campaign manager managed that as well. You know, we have a Facebook page, you got to do that. And you can pay, if you have extra money, you can pay Facebook a little bit, and you can get it pushed out there so people will see it if they're in your district. It's really handy. Twitter is like a newspaper page for your campaign, so you got to use that. That was just it wasn't as popular when I was used, but we used it. So YouTube is starting to cut down on political ads and things like that. So you can get your friends to post things on YouTube. And Instagram is a thing too, but that's just photographs. But you can post photographs, and you can tell a lot with a picture. Okay, I had 7,000 households. I probably knocked 2,000 doors personally, which meant 5 to 9 o'clock. Don't knock past 9 o'clock, but 8:59, people for some reason are okay with it. I don't know why. Just 9 o'clock is that's the limit. So for about 4 months, I knocked doors 5 to 9 o'clock every day and all day Saturday. Just do it. Because like in a city council race, when you show up at their doorstep, they love that. I mean, if somebody else shows up on your behalf, well, what does he believe? I don't know. What do you think? It's not as effective. So you need to be out doing that. I think it's really effective in a city council race. Something else, maybe not, where you have bigger territory, but I was able to hit a lot of doors. And robocalls, again, it's a reminder thing. But that's how I got my passionate supporters, was knocking doors. Planning, you got all these things to deal with. You need somebody to help you. So that's what, you've got to have somebody to handle all that for you. I'm not good at that anyway, so. Cottage meetings are really critical. One cottage meeting I had was because my Republican insider guy that was feeding me information, he was telling me what events I can't miss. You know, he was telling me where to be and where to go and who was really big, whose endorsement did I need. Even though he was a Republican insider, he still gave some really valuable advice. But the Republicans didn't help me at all. In fact, they came out against me, and so did everybody. The entire political establishment of the city of Salt Lake came out against me, and the Tribune, and I mean but there were trade-offs there, and I just rolled with it, and I just said, I'm going to go to everything, I'm going to talk to everyone, and I'm going to be positive and optimistic, and that's what matters. And we actually, even though we lost, they were so worried that I was going to win that when they found out when I conceded, I could hear them all in the background, huge party, cheering and clapping. Oh, yay! I mean, they actually thought that I had a chance. So that we had them scared. And there were people, when I was knocking doors, there were people that there was a lady that broke down crying, and I'll never forget her, because she was so exasperated with the city of Salt Lake, and when she talked to me, we just resonated, oh, we gotta have our freedom, and she broke down crying, and she was willing to do anything to help me. And I found people that were, well, they put the maximum donation in if they didn't have time. There was one guy who funded one of my flyers, which it cost $3,000 to send out a mailer to everybody. That was my biggest mailer. We did honkin' waves. These are pictures of honkin' waves we did. So my key issue, which came from this Republican Insider guy, was they wanted to run this streetcar, which was actually a tracks train. It was actually a train up this little street, and nobody wanted it. It was the biggest turnout they'd ever had in Salt Lake City Council history. They had old ladies sitting on the floor waiting to get in to tell the mayor what he could do with his train. And they wanted, of course, it was because they wanted to get federal money, right? They didn't care about the people. And the city council rep, and even the city council, which they're all socialists, they were split 50-50 because they knew that their people would hate them if they said yes in this one area. And so, of course, 2 weeks after that happened, the mayor said, oh yeah, we'll figure something out. 2 weeks later, of course, he said, we're going to do it anyway. Too bad for you. So everybody hated the train. I think I talked to 5 people that liked it, but that was my key issue, and we did honking waves, and I think most of my votes came from people honking and seeing my sign and seeing, stop the streetcar. There's so many issues that you could use as a rallying cry for freedom. I mean, really, thousands. Pick one. Okay, so if you got extra money, you can run a radio ad, so I'll play one of my radio ads.
What's up, Sugar House? BIFG, boxing is for girls, Salt Lake City, Utah. This is Eliza James. We train the people. Kevin Paulson is for the people.
Hi, I'm Michael Miller with the Salt Lake Police Association. As police officers, we understand how important it is to get the community involved. And that's why we're asking you to help us support Kevin Paulson for Salt Lake City Council.
Help me stop the 11th East streetcar, the $114 million Performing Arts Center, and the special favors from the City RDA to their favorite developers. This is our chance to take back our city at the local level. Mayor Becker and the establishment support my opponent for a good reason. They fear change. We need change in Salt Lake City, and I vow to plant the seeds of change in our city council based on fundamental principles we all believe in: local growth and control, fair business practices, and liberty for the individual. Join me in a revolution that will sweep the city and the state and root out waste in our local government. I am Kevin Paulson, candidate for Salt Lake City Council, and I approve this message.
Oh, whoops.
What's up, Sugar House?
No. Okay. I just recorded those things. One segment of it, the first person that talked, she was one of my cottage meetings. She hated the streetcar because her business was on that street. And so she would come knock doors with me. She'd do whatever it took. And I just recorded what she said on my phone while we were knocking doors. And then the other one was a voicemail message from the one endorsement that I got was the police association, was the police union. Actually, all the unions wanted to support me. Strangely enough, but it was because I was fighting the mayor. And they hated the mayor for some reason, he was being pinching pennies on them. So, but then they would say the fire union, I think I've got a slide on that, but the fire union said, well, we were going to endorse you, Kevin, but we think she's going to win. So we're changing our endorsement. They just flat out told me that. There's no shame. It's really pathetic. But we had this debate, and one of the other candidates, Deb Henry, she moderated it. And we had a pretty good turnout, and it was a lot of fun. And, just don't be afraid to put the liberty ideas out there. People love it. I mean, I think when I started talking about Thomas Jefferson and the principles, everybody loved that. And I think that's why we actually had a really successful campaign, the other side. And everybody I talked to said, oh, your campaign was amazing. I couldn't believe what you did. And even though we were not well recognized, nobody knew who we were, but we did well, considering. This was a robocall, if you want to hear what a robocall sounds like.
It's the debate for City Council election this Tuesday at 7 p.m. in Highland High School Auditorium between Kevin Paulson and Lisa Ramsey Adams, moderated by Deb Henry. 6 p.m. for treats and meet and greet. Topics that affect you here in our district, like the terrible 11th East streetcar, zoning and planning, taxes and bike lanes. Come express your concern, ask questions in person, and listen to a spirited debate between Kevin and Lisa. Come early for goodies at 6 p.m., Highland High School, this Tuesday the 8th, and meet in person. I am Kevin Paulson, and I approve this message.
I was trying to be all official. I approve this message. But,
Don't miss it.
Okay. So the newspapers, once you're running, especially if you get on the general election, everybody's going to come out of the woodwork. I mean, I had the Dog Walking Association and like every possible group you could think of, and some you never thought of, were emailing me trying to get me to talk to them, and I'm going to go your way, you know. And so a lot of the time, freedom helped them. So it was funny though, Salt Lake Tribune, you got to watch out for the media. So they brought me in there and we talked for 3 hours. And they were all, oh, it's so great, all these ideas you have, it's amazing. And then their article came out and you wouldn't even recognize the conversation at all. And so I think when you talk to the media outlets, you just tape record everything and just give them curt little statements that you pre-prepared. So that's one thing I would change. But anyway, the nice thing about it, when I asked them to retract their article, they said, no, we're not going to do it, but we'll give you an op-ed. So they gave me an op-ed. And people read it. And a lot of people had seen and liked what I had to say. And then I got another op-ed in the other paper, too. So that was fun. This is the police association guy. He would not back down, even though they knew that I was not going to win at a certain point. Or at least they thought I wasn't going to win. They had integrity, and they stuck with it. I think part of that was because when the police union interviewed me, they had a vote. They had people there to vote. The fire union interviewed me. They just met with me in a restaurant. So it's a different, so they could back out. You know. Oh yeah, and that was one of my flyers. Let's see here. I'll go back. Go back one. The guy that funded this flyer, and this has got the police association, their endorsement, he said, I want a pie chart showing the waste of money. So I said, hey, that's great. I can do that. And so Mayor Becker wanted to put in this performing arts center that was more than half the budget, and we already have 4 of them. And so clearly that's something people are going to want to know about. So you learn about these issues as you go. But, you know, government waste, there's no end to it. So there's just all kinds of fodder for material for campaigns. Oh yeah, that was the fire union. We're sorry, even though we said we'd endorse you. I mean, they just told me that, right, straight up on the phone. Yeah. How do you want to be remembered? So I think closing remarks, if you're going to run, be honest. Tell what you really think. Be passionate, because the goal is not to win. You might win. Be prepared if you do. But the goal is to change hearts and minds and affect people. And that's what I would do it again. I'm going to do it again someday. It's a great experience if you've never run. Might consider it. Any questions?
So do you think the campaign would for a Liberty person to say, I will obey my oath of office? That's your platform.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great platform. I have a friend that does that. He ran for Senate in Utah. His whole campaign was oath of office. I'm gonna take the oath to obey the Constitution, and that's what I'm gonna do. And he had a lot of support.
One other comment. How about, you mentioned knocking doors till 9 o'clock. I don't do it after dark.
Right. You know, people didn't care once it got darker, because later in the summer, or later when it gets toward winter, early in the summer, plenty of time. I started to peel that back a little bit, because it got a little sketchy out there in some places, but people didn't care. Up to 9, and phone calls. And you could shift. I think it's good to shift toward more phone calls later in the season. It's a good point.
I run 3 businesses, so I get a lot of robocalls.
Oh, you get a lot of robocalls.
I run 3 businesses, I get a lot of robocalls.
Yeah.
What I heard from you is the best, most listenable robocall. And I'm wondering if you had to hone that, and how did you hone it?
I sat down with my iPhone at the desk, and I spoke it out 5 or 6 times, and I picked the best one.
You sounded like NPR.
I guess I have a little bit of a running for office gene in me, maybe. I don't know. Hey, is that good? Oh, one more.
I need a mic.
And we're probably out of time. Sorry, I don't want to go over anything.
Love you, Mr. Paulson. I really do. I love your enthusiastic, good-looking guy, a libertarian.
And I was going to pass this
and I'll autograph it for you. But let me ask you something, sir. Let me just stand up while I'm doing it, because I owe some respect here.
My girlfriend made for me about the campaign. Go ahead.
Just let me ask you this question. Why would your goal be to have fun but not win? And then In the words of General Norman Schwarzkopf, grab them by the balls and, let's see, grab them by their balls, their hearts and minds will follow. Okay, that's General Schwarzkopf. Let me let this man say. He says it a lot better.
Let's don't say anything. We're taking up too much time.
I would love to do that. I'm a motivator. I'm a headhuntress, and I wanted to ask you, how could you have that goal, not to win? You scared me.
Well, I think I realized that, I wanted to win, but, and I tried to win, but I realized that far more important than winning was the experience of spreading this liberty message to people.
So yours was just to spread the message.
Well, that's what I think is most effective, frankly. If you don't, people can tell. If you're doing it for the votes, it's like the guys that were in school doing it for the grade. You can tell, and they don't learn the information as well. And so I really think that if your passion is freedom, well, look at Ron Paul. I think honestly his campaign was the most successful campaign I've ever seen. I'm only 44 years old, but I've never seen any campaign as successful as his was. Anywhere, ever. Just look at how many people show up to his rallies. And all he was doing was sharing the message of liberty. And it was pure, and it was true, and people could see that. So I think that's what we have to do anyway. We have to change people's minds and hearts.